You are listening to A Quiet Mind. How important is self-honesty on our inner investigation? I would have to say that it's extremely important. It was once said, how can you measure your spiritual development? Or how do you know how well you are doing, or how you can expedite the process of your spiritual growth? And the answer to that is, how much truth can you take about yourself? So the topic would be, for this podcast, self-honesty. And I want us all to start off with this very slowly, because what I don't want us to do is to start to condemn ourselves. In other words, to make ourselves wrong in order to facilitate a change. What we need to do is just notice what's going on at any given moment in regards to how honest are we being about ourself today. How much truth can we take? And when we delve into self-honesty, there is that trigger that comes up for us to want to start to condemn and label. So as we're looking at ourselves with honesty, always remember and keep this in the back of your mind there, to have the reminder of, I'm not going to beat myself up about this truth that I'm seeing about myself right now. I'm just going to observe that truth without the condemnation. Self-honesty is something that, as we grow along in our spiritual path, we'll use more and more often to take great leaps. These I like to call leaps of faith with ourself. We can take great leaps in our spiritual growth when we are willing to look at ourselves and be honest. And this is a type of criticism, but what we're going to do is we're going to focus on how can we look at ourselves honestly and deeply and with love in order to make a change, in order to accept more about ourselves in a deeper way. And with the consideration that we remember that the more truth we can handle about ourselves without the condemnation, the deeper our spiritual growth will be. And I know that this may be a difficult thing to grasp, but we can start out slowly by just observing the self. And this can be a very sensitive area. And I'm coming at this in a way where I not really want to caution you too much, because I don't want you to, again, be preconceived to anything. But I do want you to pay attention to the fact that you do want to condemn. And what we want to do is practice an honest self-observation, and a deep one, without the criticism. Just look at it as you're looking at a freeway sign to an exit. With that kind of impartiality is what we want to do. And this will, like I said, this will take practice, but we can start now very, very concentrated. and pick something maybe that we know we want to work on this week about ourselves, something that we already have been honest with and saying, I really do need to make this change. And I really know that this change in my life will better my life in many different ways. So let's take something that we already know that we need to work on, and let's look at it in a very, very positive light. In other words, let's not analyze it and do the normal thing the mind wants to do by taking it apart and putting it back together again. In other words, say, I really need to quit drinking coffee because the Surgeon General has said that coffee is bad for my heart and it increases my blood pressure, and therefore it makes me tense and more susceptible to being nervous, and therefore raising my blood pressure, therefore being bad for my heart. And all of these labels that we like to put on these habits that we have in order to try to make some sort of a change. And we talked about this before, how lasting change never can come about when we are beating ourselves up about something, or we're using a so-called negative to create a so-called positive. In other words, using the bad versus the good. And what we want to do is we want to go right down the middle path with this, because we do know that there's been research that said that coffee and cigarette smoking, eating too many sweets and such can be a bad thing for us. And we know that when we eat green vegetables and we, abstain from drinking and smoking, that this is supposedly better for us. And I don't want to be on either side of this. What I'm doing here is just using these as an example to see how we try to make changes by using negatives to spur us on. And what I want to do is let's just notice that once again today, all day if we can. Every time we see ourselves being honest with ourselves, watch and see if we are condemning the self, or we are condemning our reactions, we are condemning our habitual responses. Just take note of that for now. This will be what we're going to practice today. Take note when you are being overly critical in a supposed habit or mannerism that you want to change.